Hi, everybody, and welcome to a special edition, and I know I say that all the time because every edition is a special edition of The Lunch Bunch. Today is episode 70, and we have a very special guest, Ryan Hanley. Yay! Ryan is super. I mean, I followed Ryan for a long time. He did call the police on me, and I got a restraining order, but we're online. So I follow up. I listened to his podcast, Content Warfare. I remember it when it was a podcast, and then he started to use the Hangout podcast. So yeah, I've been eyeing you for a while there, Ryan. So Ryan is here, and he's written a brand new book called Content Warfare. Some of the great little toy guys here, Legos, and I just read it, and it's a really good book, so I recommend it highly. Lots of great tips, but one chapter in particular we're going to be addressing today, and that's the one about the generalist specialist and Google hating generalist. And he wrote us an interesting blog post last summer, and actually I took that and I put it in our list of topics for upcoming Ray Bunch shows. And I was reminded last week when we talked about experts that was in that list, and I want to go back to it because it's a nice segue into this topic. Because when we were talking about experts last week, we were talking about specialties and niches, so it fits. You know, if you're going to be a specialist, and an expert, it has to be something about a particular subject. The question is, can you only be a specialist? I mean, if you're a marketer and you're online and you want Google to know you as an authority in something, do you always have to publish about the same thing? So that's the kind of questions we're going to put out today. And before I get to the questions, let's have Ryan say a hi.
Well, that was quite the introduction, and I have been a fan of yours as well. I've been on your email list for quite a while, and I always read it and share when I can, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here. And we are having some really good chats, and I actually had to tell you, for everyone listening at home, to stop asking me questions while we weren't recording because we had some great stuff going in the pre.
Well, there's going to be lots more. So anybody else want to say anything before we start with the questions? Okay, the bunch are all revved up. I can tell. Look at them, like they're just like pacing.
I want a weather report from Seattle.
Oh, of course. Okay, Scotty, can we have the weekly weather report?
Okay, I mean, people would be disappointed otherwise. I'm looking out the window and I'm seeing plenty of color because things are in bloom, and I look up and I see gray skies, which, of course, everyone knows pleases me to no end. So today is a good day, and it's 46 degrees in Seattle. Thank you for asking.
Randy, go ahead. Rub it in.
It's tipping the mercury at 80 today here in southeast Georgia. Clear skies.
That's too hot.
Yeah.
Some people feel it might be too hot. After 3 or 4 months of it, I might be telling you it's too hot.
Well, I'll tell you about in July. I'll get back to you on that. Okay, so we're going to go with my first question. And I posted a photo on the event page with Benjamin Franklin, who we all know and we refer to a lot. And if you Google particular things, you may come up with, Benjamin Franklin for what? Electricity, philosophy, teaching, geography, postmaster, all those things. So it would be interesting to ask Ryan. Ryan, can you be a specialist in more than one thing? And I'd be very interested if you were going to advise Benjamin Franklin on a content strategy. What would you tell him to do, given that he's basically an expert in so many things?
Well, see, so this is the really interesting. We talked a little bit about this, and this is the really interesting about this interesting point about this discussion of specialist versus generalist is. The word people get so hung up on how they view themselves that they don't actually, specifically with this argument, and BL was talking a little bit about people write rebuttals to her arguments that are longer than her actual argument, and that was kind of the case with this post that I wrote. That when I put it together, I never would have thought would have gotten so much attention, and the idea was that you can be a generalist, 100% you can be a generalist. But to market yourself today, when we look at the way consumers search and the way they go out and their access to find the exact person that suits them specifically, is we need to dial into that thing that we do. So you might be a Google Plus expert, right? So you're Google Plus, that's what I do. I'm going to market myself as Google, but I know Facebook and Twitter, and I can handle your content strategy, and I can do all these things for you. But what sets me apart is that my understanding of Google Plus, or what sets me apart is my understanding of email marketing or content strategy, though I can do all these things. And I think with Benjamin Franklin, the idea would be, his expertise, his specialty is innovation. He could look at a problem and break it down and come up with alternative solutions. The fact that it was all these different disciplines was not his specialty. His specialty was this unique skill he had. All those other things were part of that specialty.
Oh, I love that answer. I never thought of that. That's great. Boy, you're really good. We have a comment from Jeff. Can you be a generalist and just market yourself as a specialist?
Absolutely, and I think that's what everybody does. So take a good friend of mine, Sue B. Zimmerman, who I recently just interviewed for my podcast, where she's actually been on twice. She markets herself as the Instagram gal, and she does tons of great stuff with Instagram. But if you ever hear her talk, she talks about so much more than just Instagram. She talks about how to present yourself visually to the world in a way that attracts the perfect audience. She talks about entrepreneurialism. She talks about online business. I mean, these are all things that separate her from everybody else that does online marketing, but her wedge in, that thing that makes her different, the thing that makes her stand out, is Instagram, and that's her specialty that she markets herself as. But everything underneath that is so much wider and has so much more breadth.
So on the other hand, I have done a series of interviews with people who are polymaths, meaning that they're excellent at more than one thing. A gynecologist who was a novelist, a lawyer who opened a gluten-free bakery, and so on. And so I really do believe that you can have many specialties, but I think you're right when it comes to marketing, you have to market each of those as a separate specialty. And I think you can market more than one specialty, don't you?
100%. And that was really the crux of my argument in that article, was that this isn't who you are as a business person. This is how you market yourself. So, so the gynecologist, bread maker, or whatever you said. I mean, she's not marketing, or he's not marketing himself as a gynecologist bread maker.
I'm sorry. I just have a visual there. That's just very disturbing.
Harvest,
bringing new meaning to the term yeast infection.
Yeah. So here are the rails, and now we're completely off the rails. No, but yeah. So that's the point. Is that the one business, you can have multiple businesses and wear 10 different hats, but to market yourself as the best hat maker or whatever, you have to market yourself as the best hat maker, and then as the best doctor, and then as the best writer, or whatever the different specialties are, not all grouped together. Because if I was going to choose somebody, I would say, I want the person who spends all day thinking about that thing. They know that thing better than anybody else. I want them to operate on my elbow. Not the doctor who I also know spends half their time writing fantasy novels. Because now I'm going, are they as committed to fixing my elbow? Do they have as much expertise as fixing my elbow? So, not that that's necessarily true or they have any different skill, but when you're searching, think about your own searching for a practitioner, you're looking for the best person and someone committed to that thing. So we can have these different buckets, but we just need to market them separately and as us as specialists in those separate buckets. What lies underneath is a completely different story. That's your business and how you operate your life and your income stream, and that's completely different.
Okay, so you could be a gynecologist / baker.
Yes.
But you market yourself as a gynecologist and have maybe a personal blog or a blog about baking and different breads kind of thing.
Just for clarification, the gynecologist was an author.
Author, yes. Not a yeast harvester.
Okay.
Ron, let me ask you just to share your thoughts about what you see in the digital space from people who portray themselves as the answer to all things. Let's just take, we're kind of concentrating on marketing, so let's talk about marketing. Those people out there that they just come off as they're not necessarily a specialist in any one vein. They know something about it all and consider themselves or portray themselves as an expert in it all.
Yeah. So I'm going to use our good friend Jason Weiser on this, and he says that he quote unquote whooped me in this conversation, but let me tell you why that is not true. So when I was having this conversation with Jason Weiser about generalist versus specialist, he said, I am a generalist. When someone works with me, we run the full gambit of from product development, all the way to implementation and marketing out to the world. And I said, yes, but your specialty is small business. That's your specialty. If a mid-size or large business, to your own accord, so again, we're going back to Benjamin Franklin, right? I would say that Jason Weiser's expertise isn't even just in marketing, right? It's in how do you handle a small business from messaging to product development to implementation to get to actual getting that out into all these digital spaces. Because he's talking email marketing, strategy, how you develop your brand, but it is in the context of small and most often local businesses. That is his specialty. The fact that he can do all these other things is his business, but how he markets himself is a small business marketing expert. So that is his specialty. So I do think it's possible, but there's no way if Johnson & Johnson came into Jason Weiser and said, hey, we want you to do our strategy, he couldn't do it. It's just that's not his thing. He might know all these different things, but he doesn't have the team or the expertise. And not that he couldn't do it, but just that's not how his business is set up or how he markets himself. So does that answer your question?
Do you think, Ryan, that being a small business specialist is too broad a niche for well, let's say Google or for anything?
Yeah.
Being a specialist in small businesses is big, right?
Yeah.
That's a big area.
I think that, so my personal opinion is if I was advising someone, I would say yes. I mean, I also, and though he doesn't admit it, I think he uses Google Plus to mine a lot of his business. He uses his expertise inside of Google Plus, and he used Hangouts a lot to market his business, and he does fantastic work. I'm only using him as an example because I respect him so much. But, so I think that even though he would say he markets himself as a small business expert, he has even used some of his specific skills and platforms to separate himself in that way. If I was advising someone, I would say yes, that's a little too broad. But then if you had a geographical location that you were working inside of, now we're starting, all these little things that we don't necessarily think about pull us into an expert, into a specialization. It's just that our self-image is that we're larger than that, and that's why we fight. That's why people fight back against this idea of being a specialist so much, is the people who view themselves as generalists feel like they are, the Danny DeVito Renaissance men and women of the business world, right? Like they want to have a little feel for anything, and that's completely cool. It's just why I think they push back so hard. I think everybody ends up niching down into a specialist when they market.
Okay, BL, you have a comment from Jeff?
I
okay.
do.
Yep. Okay, so that's exactly why I went with a manly Pinterest. Well, now that's a niche.
Yep.
The manly Pinterest thing. I mean, look at that. I even grew a beard for it. I saw an opening, and then I could set myself apart in social media, but still sell other services like FB ads. And that's you lead in, I guess, with your specialty, right?
Yeah.
You were talking about generalism, and going back to Randy's question, because we know there's a lot of people that we all know personally and online that are social media experts, icons, whatever. I mean, and that's it, social media. They don't specialize in one particular thing. They'll go from one thing to the next. And I find that very difficult to get a handle on exactly who they are if I want to describe someone to somebody. Now, you recently had John Lomer on your podcast. And you said at the time, I remember that because I was a little bit surprised because John Lomer is FB 24/7. I mean,
24/7.
He's Facebook, and he's some people that sometimes, mentioned, like I'm sort of like the kind with Google Plus because I'm Google Plus pretty well all the time. And there's a danger in attaching yourself to one platform. And you had said that you're trying to sort of step away from being known as a Google Plus guy. And was that a result of being afraid to be attached to one particular platform?
Yeah, I think so. I am a tinkerer, right? I love to try things out, and 2014 for me was all Google Plus. I invested myself completely. I let Twitter go, I let LinkedIn go, I let Facebook go. Not that I wasn't in those places, but it was very small. And I love Google Plus. I've established a great network of people, a lot of good relationships, and now I can maintain that. For me, I never wanted to be a Google Plus expert, right? For me, it's all about messaging and audience building and really kind of content strategy. That's my niche. If you want to talk about social media management, I'm not your best guy. You know what I mean? I understand social media. I could refer you to someone who does that, but that's not my thing. And I didn't want my love for how you share content in Google Plus, which is one of the reasons that I was drawn into the network, to define what I was really interested in. It wasn't Google Plus per se, it was the way that you shared content in that platform. So I would rather be seen as someone who helps with messaging, audience building, and content development than a Google Plus person, which is where I was going. Now, there's advantages to both. I'll tell you, when I wore the straight Google Plus hat, I got a lot more interview requests, because the content strategist idea is a much bigger market, and you're playing with, Jay Bears and Marcus Sheridan's, all these other guys who are very, very well established. And so there's pros and cons to these different things, but it wasn't for dislike of anything with Google Plus. It was just that it's not the only place that I want to play.
Okay.
Well,
I love that.
And just to kind of go into Ryan's support in a way, back when I was a major account manager for many years, it was a given that we would never have more than about 10 accounts assigned to us, because the idea to effectively be an account manager, you had to know everything about that business. How does that business run? How does that account? And in knowing that, how can my company aid you? What can I do? How can I develop a strategy to help you and us to have mutual benefit? Being that you start getting too many, you get saturated. You can't concentrate on one or two things. So I kind of agree with. I understand a lot of businesses, but say maybe you find somebody that's a specialist, and let's go back to the doctor or the dentist, and as a marketer or as a social media person in your local area, you focus on, dentist and endodontist and that type field. So you learn that niche and you develop it, but your expertise is marketing. So, but you learn about, not necessarily you have to be a dentist, but you learn that nomenclature so you can go in there and talk and show how your components that you can bring to this to that business will help his business flourish. Does that make sense, Ryan?
100%. I mean, that's my life. I mean, my whole business is built around the insurance industry. I mean, my primary vertical is 100% the insurance business, and if that wasn't my vertical, I would never have the position I have today. I mean, the work that I'm able to do now and the scale is such a bigger game. If I was just a generalist content strategist, this position would have never developed for itself. So 100% in agreement.
Jess, you were going to say something?
I was, and I forgot what it was back then, but I do have something to say about what you were just saying, Ryan, and that's one of the things that popped into my head that I love when we go driving down the road and we see these trucks, and one of these trucks was a spiral everything you could ever want, spiral staircase. Okay, now, how many people have spiral staircases in their homes, if they have staircases at all? This guy was a spiral staircase expert, and I'm sure he knew about all kinds of staircases, but that was the one that you actually looked twice and went, oh, I didn't even know somebody would do something like that. And I think that's where, when you talk about verticals, Ryan, that's where I really think that we all do that. And when we try and, we're told, don't please everybody because you can't please everybody as an individual. So why would we try and do that with our business? And to me, I find that an interesting chasm, because we expect to not please everybody as an individual and to be ourselves and be authentic and all that other wonderful stuff that goes with having a social profile, yet our businesses are supposed to answer everybody's question all of the time. And I don't think they should or they have to. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that So there are questions that you know, I'd like to portray myself as a marketing expert, but there are questions that you could ask me that I just don't even have the answer to. And I think so. There's a lot of things that go into this, and this is part of the psychology of just people in general, right? Like not a lot of people. I shouldn't say not a lot of people, but it is tough for a lot of people if you ask them a question for them to say, I don't know the answer to that. Right, like you want to be seen as an authority, and if you ask me a question, it is hard to say that you don't know that thing, especially if it's somehow inside your industry. You don't want to look weak. So I think that's part of the reason we fight the specialist thing, because we don't want to be put into a little box. To raise the point about Google Plus, for me, it was I felt I have no problem being put in a box. The box that I was going into wasn't the one that really defined what I do, but I think we should be okay being put in these boxes, because what it says is I know exactly why I should contact Jess. I know when she is the person for my business. If you said, I just kind of help companies, and it doesn't really matter what company it is or where they are or what they do, but you know, I can help them with this thing, then when I have that issue, I don't know if you're the person or not. And I think that that's a big problem for a lot of businesses. We almost, it's counterintuitive in many ways, but really it's the true path to success, I think. You know, look at this. Gary Vaynerchuk was a wine guy, right? He sold wine online for seven years before he ever became what he is today. He was just a dude spitting into a Jets bucket. And if you asked him about anything else, he would have no clue. He would have no idea. You know, and then now he has 300 employees. He can scale. It's different. But for a long time, if you want to know about wine, you'd call Gary Vaynerchuk. Anything else, you would never even contact him. So I think that
this is the question I have. I wonder, and when you talk about verticals, okay, Gary had his own wine store, and he was selling his wine store. But when you talk about verticals and you talk about the insurance industry, I have always wondered, how can you work for more than one insurance company? How can you work for more than one company in an area? And I know that many specialists do that, but I don't know quite how you pull that off. I would love you to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so you know, think of the independent insurance industry as 37,000 unique businesses, right? So the agency that I used to work for, which was my family's agency, they were kind of a mixed small commercial personal line, so they would do your home and auto, and they would do small business. But we actually niched down to contractors, restaurants, and property owners. So if you were a manufacturer, we would not have a good solution for you. However, there's actually a guy that I could hit with probably a solid drive and a 7-iron from our location that does manufacturers. So not that I would necessarily want to give him the business, but inside this very small market, within eyeshot of each other, are two seemingly similar businesses that help a completely separate market. So
we're talking about two different things in this conversation, because one of them is how you market yourself, and you're talking about, I mean, insurance being a product. You could sell insurance to any number of businesses in the same vertical. But if you're marketing yourself as an expert in businesses that compete with each other, I don't see how you can handle, for example, two companies that make lipstick. I'm just pulling that out of the air.
What if you look at it like you know, marketing is not a specialty, it's a field, right? But what if you think of you specialize in lipstick or semiconductors, right? And your specialty is, I'm a social media semiconductor person. That sounds kind of crazy, but if you went to a semiconductor company and your title, your niche was semiconductor social media, Twitter feeds and Facebook feeds, they wouldn't doubt your expertise. If you just went in there and said, hey, I'm just a marketing guy that can help you do this and that, I mean, that's new.
But in terms of being a social media expert for semiconductors, and they're competing with each other, how can you serve them both? I really am confused.
Okay, I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to just move ahead because we're just about to go into the takeout section, and I want to go back. I want to ask Ryan a question that's relative to his book and to that article that he wrote before we get lost. So can you just tell us a little bit why you claim that Google has killed the generalist. We recently had David Amberlin on, and he certainly talked about the fact that we have to build an authority, and to do that you have to be a specialist in something. And when you're talking about, because I saw a couple comments in the stream about, yeah, I'm a web specialist, but for 90% of my stuff, but once they come in the door, there's other things I can help them with. So I'm thinking there's a parallel in how we treat Google Plus, in the sense that we tend to lead with our personalities on our profile and then bring people into the business. And in this way, we're leading with our brand, with our specialty, and then bringing them in to the company as a whole, to our general business.
That is the crux of my complete argument, broken down perfectly, and you probably said it better than I did. That's the idea, is that when one of the top articles that I ever wrote for the Murray Group, for the insurance agency I used to work for, was the top 5 mortgage brokers in Albany, New York. The 5 best mortgage brokers, 5 best. And why? Because when someone searches for mortgage brokers in Albany, New York, they want the best mortgage broker. And that's how they think when they search. So so we established ourselves as an expert in our market by, we're getting into tactics a little bit here, but we established ourselves as an expert in the market by finding the fact that people look for the best mortgage broker, and actually we drilled into specific type of mortgages over time, and these posted really, really well because we were finding very distinct.
Was that you, Ryan?
I don't know. Either that or there's like a UFO flying over the roof of my building. So the point was, before I get way off track, was that we established ourselves as having knowledge in the market, and then once we got in, we said to them, "Oh, we can help you with all these things, and we have referrals to these different types of agencies." But we caught them because they were looking for a very specific thing. So we caught them in that thing, brought them in, and then showed them the full breadth of what we had to offer. If we showed them the full breadth in our marketing, then we would never have been the solution for the problem that they had at that time, right? It's kind of a different way of searching, I think. And people may disagree, but it used to just be, hey, Ray's a good guy, you should check him out for this thing. Now, we don't necessarily give referrals like that anymore. We go to Google and we say, I want the best person to help me with this solution, bang. And if you're not the person that shows up, they don't find you. I mean,
but
maybe they will over time.
If you do want to give a recommendation like that, please don't let me stop you. Jess, we only have like a very short time. Did you want to add something?
I was going, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to go now to the takeout. And Ryan, that was terrific. Thank you. We're going to go to the takeout section, which is links to articles and videos and HOAs that we saw that's relevant to this topic, and that we hope that can help you. So I'll go first. I'm going to share a post that I came across when I was doing research for this topic, and it's an interesting one because it speaks to generalists and specialists in the sense of hiring people. And so if you're a marketer, you may want to know what goes into a company's decision to hire you. So should you hire a marketing specialist or generalist? And there's some really good stuff here. There's a way for businesses to assess whether they should go for a specialist or a generalist, and basically the pros and cons of each. So I'll share that link for you. I thought it was very interesting. So next, let's go with Scott. Scott, we haven't heard from you much, so let's hear what you got for a takeout.
Well, thanks. First of all, what a great pleasure it is to be in the same panel with Ron. This has been really fun, and loved some of the things that you had to say. I was thinking about this, and there's a show that Jess and I did a while back about people becoming essentially specialists in their own life. We had interviewed someone who'd written a book about the one thing. And so actually Sean Kokaska is the person we interviewed, who is not the author. It's Gary Keller. But I think that to find out about something that is just about yourself, being a specialist, and it's called The One Thing. So I think it ties in with this discussion.
That was a great show. I remember that. Okay, Randy?
Yeah, I follow a blogger because her name is Penelope Trunk. She lives in rural Wisconsin. She's founded about 4 or 5 startups, but she writes an interesting blog. But I remember reading something a while back. Actually, it was 2012 that she wrote a blog, and I went back and found it. 5 reasons you should specialize right now, and it's an interesting read. It's a short read, but she uses farming analogies about specialists. So I'll share that with you. I think it'll hit home.
Thank you very much, Jess.
I was going to try and do something fancy and share the screen like you did and like BL is doing, and it's not going to work out. So we're just going to go with, I'll also share the link to this. There is a lady that I love to read her blog posts. Her name is Jessica Hagee on Forbes, and she draws pictures. So we have that in common. I love to doodle and get things, how simply can you distill an idea down to? And in 2013, so I went back a ways too, Randy, for this one, 5 routes to relevance, ways that you can matter. And there, a couple of pictures really relate to this conversation and everything that Ryan stands for, as do each person in this panel, talking about leveraging your relevance and the topics that you're working at. How do you create trade secrets? What are you thinking about when you become a thought leader? And really what we're talking about here is we're each becoming a thought leader in something that no matter what we're talking about, somebody's going to go, oh, I know Ryan does this. Oh, I know BL does that. And so we can help other people add value to their context and their conversations by being really strong in an area so somebody knows what they can source us for as well. So it's pretty neat. And my favorite one was value at market, care and creation. And the top part of that is the treasure. That was my favorite one of those. So you'll get to see all of the pictures when I share that article.
Thanks a lot, Jess. BL.
Well, the one I have is a Hugh McLeod cartoon, and I'm pretty sure this goes back to 2010, and it's just a joke about calling yourself a specialist because there are so many people who call themselves social media specialists, and so he did a series of cartoons about how funny that was because everybody and their dog is a social media specialist, and this cartoon is about a bunch of social media specialists waiting in line for the next iPhone, which just cracks me up.
Well, you know, social media experts has hit a new low when what's his name week today, John. This week what's his name? Oh, I just blanked out. Oh yes, John Oliver. I just watched him yesterday because we had his great why is this such a thing? Still a thing about daylight saving time, and he mentioned in one of the skits about social media experts being as useless as basically a tit in a bowl. So it was very good. Anyway, thanks guys. Did I hit everybody? I got everybody right. So great show. Thank you so much, Ryan. Really enjoyed having you here. As I said, I followed you for a long time, and I love what you do, and your broadcast is great. So listen to the Content Warfare podcast, and get the book. The book is super. And next week for episode 71, we're going to go green for St. Paddy's Day, and we'll fill you in on that as we get the topics together. So thanks again, and we'll see you next week. I have a newsletter, a Google Plus Tips newsletter that goes out every Saturday. If you want to subscribe, go to brayhiltz.com and do so. I would love to have you on the list, and take care. Till next week. Bye-bye.